Robinson was the greatest athlete in American history. But he knew it wasn't enough.
This land is your land.
Jackie felt an obligation to speak up.
From Ken Burns, if you only know the legend, you don't know the man.
From California.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Not Content Podcast. My name is Jerome Cuson. Coming off of last week when we were discussing Queen of the Ring, we are going to be shifting gears and do what we originally planned to do for this month of April, and that is cover more baseball. We are kind of doing an addendum to last year when we not only reviewed the baseball documentary series by Ken Burns, but we also documented a number of really important baseball movies. For the month of April, we are going to kind of be continuing to engage with Ken Burns. Technically, the 10th inning of baseball came out first, but we felt that it was more appropriate to go over the Jackie Robinson documentary that came out a few years after baseball, the 10th inning. But thematically, it's more appropriate to kind of go on this side quest than go forward in the timeline. My co-host, of course, is Brian. You can find us through YouTube. Please leave a 4 or 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Click the bell icon on YouTube so that so you can get notifications. Click to like and subscribe. Do all of that business. Brian, you called this the Rogue One of the Ken Burns baseball universe, and it's really hard to argue. We really, there is some rehash from parts 4, 5, and 6 of the baseball documentary, as they really do put the focus on Jackie Robinson this time, as is appropriate. But you get a lot more details kind of prior to Jackie Robinson joining professional baseball, kind of what happened in his childhood. So Brian, although we have seen some repetition from the first one, we go to some pretty dark places with what happens to Jackie Robinson's son, as well as kind of being ostracized by the movement that he in so many ways helped to start. And yeah, not an easy watch, I would say.
I would say the pacing is really good because it's Ken Burns. I mean, this was two-hour documentaries, and that's 4 hours of sit time, and it felt like 2.5, 2 at most. I don't know. Something about Ken Burns documentaries, just like I said before, they flow well if you got the right narrative and the right narrator and the right music and the right kind of visual to go with the narrative of the story. So it just flows naturally. But it does take many dark turns. But at the same time, it's kind of like, a reflective nature of what the 60s were to become, if that makes sense. And then he dies in 72, but still it's kind of that reflection of how the revolution was happening in terms of the 60s, in terms of the culture changing, in terms of what what terms of the black fight was in terms of 1947 versus 1967, a drastic change in terms of with the Malcolm X coming into play, leading to more.
In so many ways, it's not even.
It's less peaceful. It's definitely less peaceful than it was 20 years ago in terms of the fight, and you kind of reflect that in everyone around him. The death of Martin Luther King. I feel like that 60s part of the documentary around hour 3 or whatever it was, that was the big, inclusion of the story to what was added to the story of Jackie Robinson.
For sure. That was the big moment, because we did not get a lot of that in the baseball documentary, and that's justified because the baseball documentary, the focus should rightfully be on matters that affected the game. And certainly, while they touched on different issues of race and labor, that was all within the context of the game. And to do a sidetrack of what Jackie Robinson was doing would not necessarily be appropriate. But I think what you get here is you get a real sense of who Jackie Robinson is as a person, and just some of the issues that he had in his life. And, I can't imagine the pressure that had to be on him. And I think undoubtedly the things that he went through in terms of trying to be a race man, but also trying to be a baseball player, it definitely had its effects. And we see that manifest physically. I mean, the man looks to be 75 years old, even though he's only 50 years old. And it's a pretty awful thing to think about. And I think having Keith David as the narrator, a really great choice. You have Jamie Foxx playing as the literal voice of Jackie Robinson in this, and I think they add a lot to this documentary as well, just because of their presence. Keith David has done a number of Ken Burns documentaries, and I mean he does a great job. And the one that this reminds me the most of is Ken Burns also did a documentary on former boxing heavyweight champion Jack Johnson. He was the heavyweight champion in the early part of the 20th century, and there was a lot. I mean, if you think there were race issues then, just imagine what it was like in the beginning of the 20th century. And plus, Jack Johnson was dating white women, so you know that there were some major issues there. But I think in tone, I think it really reminds me of that, and I think that it goes to some really dark places because in the end, I think Jackie Robinson seems like he seems very sad about just what's going on in America and the fact the quote is, what's the quote, Brian, that Jackie Robinson says?
Well, I was about to say the view never changes, but that's not the quote. But
I mean, that's what Jackie ultimately blames America for not moving forward, and Brian, that naturally leads to that quote.
Yeah. What's the quote again officially?
Jackie says that he blames America for not moving forward.
Okay. I agree. Well, I not necessarily agree, but I don't know. At the time, America needed to be at a certain place to advance, but kind of got stuck because of the deaths of Martin Luther King and the Kennedy brothers and all those deaths in the 60s and 70s. I think that kind of held us back. We went and made some steps forward, and then we're back again to probably where we're in the 60s, it feels like. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I mean, Jackie Robinson feels like an Obama-era movie, literally, because Barack and Michelle Obama are in this movie.
Yeah. And also, the other thing, too, I thought it was really interesting in terms of, like, really on-the-nose editing. When they talked about Rachel and Jackie Robinson and their initial relationship and their courtship, and then talking about that, not necessarily using the words power couple, but using the idea that, you know, the Mr. and Mrs. effect and how that kind of reflects into the public eye and how you need one another to rely on each other for strength. And immediately I thought, oh, like this is subconsciously talking about Obama and his wife. And then all of a sudden, boom, there they are right on screen together, holding hands, talking about the same thing. So that was incredible editing, like talking about that and like just going on the subconscious idea about that. And then like, oh, this kind of reminds me of Mr. and Mrs. Barack Obama. And then Michelle Obama and Barack are right there. So it was crazy when that happened, but still, I think that was 2016 when this came out. That seems like a totally different, peaceful time, doesn't it?
I mean, it definitely feels like it's another world. We also have to give credit to the other two documentarians, Sarah Burns and David McMahon. They are a husband-wife duo. Also made some major contributions, undoubtedly, as the listed writers and directors. David McMahon, also known for directing a documentary about the Central Park Five, which is worth probably doing a podcast about at some point, given that story. But you certainly have to give credit to all three. Obviously, this kind of falls into the Ken Burns universe, but I do think that going into these darker territories might be a little bit. It's a little bit of new terrain. Again, there were some Jack Johnson similarities I saw, but I mean, just the way that Jackie Robinson looks and just the physical deterioration and the way that his teammates are portrayed as well. I just think that, you know, his teammates, who it seems like they're oscillating between not being supportive, but also being very skeptical of who Jackie Robinson is. And like the relationship definitely takes a turn when Jackie Robinson decides that he is going to quote unquote fight back. I love the idea that the Cincinnati Reds manager and the Phillies manager and those fans can call Jackie Robinson anything they want to. They can use the N-word. They can come up with any racist stereotype. But if Jackie Robinson fights back, then Jackie Robinson is the problem. And I think that says so much about our history with race and the way that we see race that, you know, we can't visualize the idea of a black man being angry, but the white patrons can say whatever the hell they want. The white manager can say whatever the hell he wants to.
Yeah. It sounds like you're also talking about Twitter, but
I mean, maybe
in general. But you know, just that idea of you know, trying to pick a fight and then acting like you're the victim. because you're like, oh, I can't have an opinion. I can't have this loud racist opinion. And then you have this, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it's stuck out like a sore thumb, but that's kind of what figures, it's going to happen. I also noticed like a lot of similarities in terms of the beats, in terms of like the first 2 hours of the documentary, like almost going beat for beat with 42. And then it almost makes you wonder, like, if we can have another, if we can just have another older Jackie Robinson movie. I'm sure Jamie Foxx can play him at this age. I mean, Jamie Foxx is 57. Jackie Robinson died at 53. Something like that. I would love to see a portrayal of this era after baseball, because I find it more like it's so fascinating because of all the tragedy with the son, but also like just I feel like there was some sense of accomplishment though for being the legend that he was, and not just for baseball but for kids around the world, and just it was just an incredible journey for him, and then to see him like kind of lose faith a little bit, but to kind of just maintain that faith by the end of it all at the World Series game that he threw the pitch out. So and just to see the physical deterioration, just like the physical changes. Like I'm sure if you did a makeup job now and like a 50-year-old actor playing the role of older Jackie Robinson, you'll be shocked to see how much makeup they have to put on him to make him look so old, because he was so like, I don't know. I would say he was like, it looked like a 70-year-old man by the time.
I mean, Jackie Robinson, or I'm sorry, let me look up how old Jamie Foxx is, because I don't think that he. So Jamie Foxx is older than Jackie Robinson was, and if you did a movie with Jamie Foxx as Jackie Robinson, you would probably have to make him look older with makeup, even though he himself has also gone through significant health problems. I mean, it's crazy to think, and just the level of stress.
I think it's great casting. This made me think that because Jamie Foxx is the voiceover for his letters that he's reading, and this was 2016. And it just made me think, like, man, we already got the baseball movie. Let's get the real, like, the man who was.
I just don't know. Given that Chadwick Boseman is the one who played Jackie Robinson, like, I just don't know that people want to get.
I mean, it wouldn't have to be a continuation of that. You could just start over with different actors and stuff, obviously. But it just made me think, like, there's a big opportunity to tell that story. And I'm sure a lot of people would, dig into that story about him meeting with Martin Luther King and meeting with Malcolm X, and then him talking about Muhammad Ali. There's a lot of interesting stuff that I think that 60s decade, I think, would be just so fascinating to me. But I don't know. I'm not a Hollywood producer, but I think that would be something for HBO to like look into or something like that, because that's seems like the right kind of place to do it, like a limited miniseries.
I mean, to me, Rachel Robinson is the person that you should do a limited series on, because, I mean, I think she is such a fascinating figure. She's still with us at 102 years old. Like, at the time she's being interviewed, like, she's clearly in her late 80s, early 90s, and still, I mean, she steals the show. Like, she is the Buck O'Neill of this documentary. I mean, they really let her cook, as is appropriate, given that she is the wife and probably knows Jackie better than anyone, even better than the kids, it seems. Like, I'm glad the kids were there, but I don't know that I got any great insights from them. It feels like Rachel's the one who we really learned so much about who Jackie was as a person. And I mean, just all of that footage is unbelievable. And I wish that there was some way that we could just release the whole thing uncut, like just watch her be interviewed for this documentary and just watch the whole thing uncut. Because I'm sure it's not the most amusing thing in the world, but just because of who Rachel Robinson is, it's pretty amazing. And look, we this podcast is literally going to come out on Jackie Robinson Day, April the 15th, 2025. That was by design. We are doing that on purpose. This is not. Oh, well, look at our timing. Like, we are making a conscious choice to do this. And I mean, look, we are also in a world where the team that drafted Robinson and put him out there made history. Like, they chose to go to the White House last week, and this is the same government that tried to remove Jackie Robinson off the DoD website. And if it was not for ESPN reporter Jeff Passan, like, who knows if that still would be the case, like if he would just not have been completely removed. So the issues that Jackie Robinson talked about then are still relevant, and the idea of America not moving forward also, sadly, incredibly, still relevant.
The view never changes, Daddy. The view never changes. As
It
the
really doesn't.
recurring theme throughout the months and years of this podcast, that you never changes. But man, yeah, I think in terms of the baseball aspects, it's pretty much the same as the '90s documentary. Um, yeah, I think they just kind of add an alternate perspective of Jackie kind of reacting to that World Series or the series of World Series, and then finally getting one, and me relating to Rachel when she's talking about we were so close, but we knew that eventually we would just get one. And that's kind of what happened with the Dodgers last year. So I totally related to that in terms of a sports level. But you can tell she's like an avid sports fan too. She wasn't just, not necessarily rooting for her husband, but I mean, of course you're rooting for your husband, but deep down, like she became like a big, huge Dodger fan. And, throughout the years, she's been like a legendary presence whenever she showed up at Dodger Stadium or just mentioned or whatever. So
I hope
she's
she
certainly
stands
a
up
legend.
and slaps Dave Roberts in the face because Dave Roberts was all about not going to see Trump in 2019, and then he caves this year. It's pretty disgusting. And to be fair, the whole team just no business going. And like I said, if Jackie Robinson gets up out of her wheelchair and just slaps him in the face, I will pop very hard for
Well, we'll find out. She's 102, and that might be her last big
that.
big headline. But man, she's definitely the star of the show in terms of the interviews. And of course, we mentioned like they recycled old interviews from the '94 stuff, so that also sticks out in terms of like the film quality all of a sudden changing. But at the same time,
Not
again,
much
you have to
though.
use
I
it
mean,
because
they mainly used
they
it.
care now. So
They mainly use it in part one when they talk about the specific day and kind of the build up, but they don't really use it a lot. The footage that I found hilarious was the Jackie Robinson story, the movie that came out in 1950, where Jackie Robinson plays himself.
you know who else did that? Did Muhammad Ali do that as well as the greatest of all?
He did that as well. The Jackie Robinson story. I've seen this movie. It is not great. It's Jackie. I'll say this: Jackie Robinson is a better actor than LeBron James. He is a better actor than Michael Jordan, but not by much.
Well, okay. In terms of sports athletes crossing over to be actors, bottom of the list, I guess. But again, it's not really like a big list. I think Shaq is like somewhere in the middle. If we're counting wrestling, Batista might be near the top. So who knows? But if
Uh,
we are counting wrestling, then Roddy Piper might be along the top too because he just never had a chance to be in more great sci-fi movies.
Batista's number one, and John Cena's probably number two.
Now, by default, I guess if I had to choose, I'd choose The Rock over Cena. Not in
I
wrestling,
mean,
but just in terms of acting.
the Peacemaker's so good. It's so good.
It's not for me, dog.
Very frustrating. Anyway, so as we continue our conversation on the Jackie Robinson documentary, this did come out in 2016, and I think what makes this such a big deal, of course, is just the timing coming towards the end of the Obama administration, and perhaps feeling like this was kind of a victory lap for him in so many ways, and obviously that the ricochet from that. And I'm not talking about the wrestler. I'm talking about just everything that they have done in terms of the last three voting cycles. Um, I think it just makes Jackie Robinson all the more relevant and make his story all the more relevant. And I think that I don't want to rank Jackie Robinson, compare him to a Rosa Parks or Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, because they're all incredibly important figures in the history of the civil rights movement. But you have to put Robinson right up there. And I know that he is quote unquote just an athlete, but baseball was the national pastime. I would argue that football is at this point, but baseball in 1947 is as big, if not bigger, than football is today. And I think the fact that he integrated the game really does matter. It really does change the perception of Black people in this country, and I think it does. It does create this cascading effect because, and again, I don't know that Robinson is directly responsible for this, but you do get the integration of schools, which has its good points and its bad points for sure. And you could definitely look at documentation and reporting on that. You have the integration of schools. You start having MLK integrating buses. You eventually, 17 years later, 18 years later, you get the civil rights movement in 1964 and 1965 as well. And yeah, it's just it's pretty historic times. And Brian, I don't know if you realize this, but in relation to the civil rights bill that was passed, do you realize that the record for the longest filibuster took place just before that bill was passed? Did you know that?
No, but I think the record was just recently broken, wasn't it?
It was so Strom Thurmond had the record, and it was eclipsed by the senior senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker. Cory Booker spoke for 25 hours. And unlike Strom Thurmond was like reading Green and Eggs and Ham and like reading the encyclopedia, Cory Booker was like actually on topic for the entire 25 hours. So just thought I'd throw those fun facts in there for you.
Yeah, very, very Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, literally, right? That was what we were joking about at the time that was happening.
It's funny, like I think I said it even before he started the filibuster. I was like, this could be very Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and in fact, it was.
Let's just hope that there's some consequences to it all, but I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months? From what I can tell, based on my stocks, shit went to hell, and then someone had to pause something, and then they had to fix my stocks, but they're not nearly as good as they were when a certain president was president back in December, huh?
Yeah, I know nothing. I'm not knowledgeable enough about the stock market to really speak to any of that, but the words market manipulation have definitely been thrown around in recent days, so we certainly cannot discount that. There's something about the Jackie Robinson documentary that I want to mention because you texted it to me. How about the fact that he lived with Carly Simon at some point?
Okay, that popped me because Carly Simon is kind of, if you are like a connoisseur of 70s music, like there's that famous song about her ex-lover, and who's this song about? And there's always this mystery about it. So she's one of those famous singer-songwriters, having a weird cross history with Jackie Robinson for a short time of like living together for, I don't know how many weeks or months it was before they went to their actual house. That just blew my mind. But no, and there's hardly any information about it. Every time you bring up Carly Simon, it's usually about her her marriage to, God, what's his name? That other singer-songwriter from the 70s. But it usually has to do with music. Never talking about this at all. But yeah, it just that popped me a lot. And I'm kind of a Carly Simon fan, and I think she also had that one James Bond song, Baby You're the Best. So yeah, Carly Simon's awesome in terms of some good old 70s singer-songwriters.
James Taylor, is that who she was married
That's
to?
what I'm thinking of, and it's not, the song's not about James Taylor, folks. It's about some other douchebag who you have to kind of look it up because apparently she sold the name of the person in some kind of auction for millions of dollars to charity, and that one person who won the auction never revealed it, and that was the contract. So that's one of those rock and roll mysteries of the day back in the day.
Certainly. Doesn't somebody know? Didn't she like raffle that off or something?
Yeah, the person was NDA'd, so whoever won the auction had to NDA themselves. But I guess
So when Carly Simon passes away, are we going to actually get the answer?
I don't think legally we are, because the only other person that knows is under NDA, and unless the NDA states that that person passes on or something, of course this is like legal terminology, but that's the word. That's the word. You walked into the party like you were walking onto a yacht or something like that.
That's a hell of a thing. So in terms of any final thoughts on the Jackie Robinson documentary, I think this is an excellent side quest. I'm really glad that we did this. This is well worth watching. And look, I think Ken Burns has done some really good documentaries. I know that people always love to talk about baseball and the Civil War, but some of these smaller projects, this one was really good. The Jack Johnson one is also worth watching as well. There's also the Dust Bowl. The Dust Bowl might be one of the more underrated ones he's ever done. Prohibition is also very good too. So highly, highly recommend it.
Well, for me, in terms of like the sports aspects, I was really fascinated with like the first 20 minutes because I never realized how much of a multi-sport athlete he was. I just thought it was just like some basketball and some baseball and a little football, but it was more than that, like way more than that. So he could have been a basketball star. Excuse me.
If
He
the,
could have
N-
been,
if the NBA was around, I think that he
yeah.
would have.
I mean, he was an
I
incredible
think he would
running
have been
back.
the NBA.
Yeah, and he was an incredible running back. I mean, they showed him running like 80 yards, like just avoiding so many tackles from the side. It was incredible. So I was very impressed, and to see that he's this UCLA legend is like no surprise because like he's known for that. But excuse me. But the coincidence is, folks, is that today on eBay, I sold a hat that I found at Goodwill last week for $5. Sold it for $30, folks, and the hat is one of those promotional nights, and it says UCLA night, LA Dodgers. So there you go. It's like a crossover right there between Jackie Robinson's two alma mater, so to speak, the Dodgers and the UCLA Bruins.
Absolutely. So we have discussed Jackie Robinson. Next week, we are going to continue our Ken Burns conversation. We are going to discuss the 10th inning, as we will be discussing steroids, the revolution of Latino players in Major League Baseball, as well as the ending of a long streak finally coming to an end with the Red Sox finally winning the World Series in 2004. Plus, we'll also talk about the 2001 World Series after 9/11. These are just some of the topics covered in the 10th inning, and we have that to look forward to, Brian.
Looking forward to it a lot, and this was just my time. This was my time growing up on baseball. Like from like 2002 onward was like my era of baseball. Just be conscious of it, starting to study stats. That was the year that the Angels won the World Series, so very memorable. So this kind of era going upwards to 2010 is kind of like my era, and I remember a lot of it. And a lot of my references in baseball sort of come from that era anyway. So yeah, it'll be a trip down memory lane for my childhood because that's one of those great eras. I would call it like the birth of the wild card era because that's when the wild card came in. So I'm very fascinated as to what they say about the wild card in general and how that's really affected baseball and how it's expanded to this gigantic, elaborate playoff system in baseball that might be a little too elaborate, but I guess we can talk about that once we talk about the wild card when that get introduced, as well as various topics that happened in the last 20 years of baseball up to 2010. So,
all righty. So for Brian, I am Jerome. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you again next week.